Hello, today's second review is going to be of Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Now, unfortunately, I did not think this movie held up to the first two. Uh, the second one will always be my favorite, regardless. Even though I know Isla Fisher wasn't playing Henley in that film, and it was kind of unfortunate, but I guess there was obviously there was obviously something that was going on with scheduling and stuff for that movie. Obviously, that she wasn't in it. But I just felt like this movie was kind of a little bit stale. It kind of took ideas from the first and second movie and then tried to kind of almost carbon copy them and use them for the new crew that they were bringing on, and it kind of just fell a little short for me compared to the first two films. Not to say that it didn't have its moments, and you know, everybody kind of had like their own chemistry with, each character, but it just wasn't quite the same as the first two. And I feel like that's because they waited a little too long to do the third movie. Like 9 years is a long time to get people back together. And I just felt like maybe that's why it fell a little bit short, because I'm not saying all sequels are like that, like Zombieland um, and Zombieland 2, both phenomenal films, and they were 9 years apart. So I'm not saying I'm not saying it can't be good, but this one just fell a little short for me because in the very opening um, of the film, the new crew does almost the exact same trick as um, like the Four Horsemen did with Arthur Tressler. It kind of just felt like the same trick. Instead of this time, they were stealing his money. They were stealing like his cryptocurrency, and it kind of felt a little stale. I was like, okay, we've seen these tricks before, and then we had like the hooded figure again, and we're like, well, I was thinking it was going to be Dylan, but it wasn't. It was J. Daniel Atlas this time, and he seems to be the one in charge. Now, I guess they had done some sort of mission, and that's why they had broken up, because on one of the missions they ended up getting Dylan put in jail for a very long time, and I guess at the end of the movie he's out because he sends them some sort of package, and then he's in there and he tells them all that their mission hasn't just it's just barely begun. So I was like, okay, well they're gonna see how much this movie makes, and then maybe they'll do a fourth one. I'm not really sure exactly what they're gonna do, because I feel like there's only so many times you can repeat the same material over and over again before it becomes just kind of like a flop, if you know what I mean. So I hope there's so much more to this fourth movie than there was in this third one. Not to say that there wasn't new characters, obviously, and they're, trying to bring new ideas into the film and maybe some new magic, but it just unfortunately fell a little flat for me when, the ending was almost very similar to the end of the second movie with Tressler and his son with the plane thing. And in this one, instead, it was just, put her in an elevator and voila, somehow she's been tricked, and it just kind of reminded me of like the River Thames that they did it on in the second movie, where they do it to her in Abu Dhabi in this movie. It was just kind of the same trick, but with a larger crew or a different crew. And the whole fact that somebody else was recruiting the Horsemen again, it was like the same idea as the first two movies, kind of just mushed together to make one movie. if it, yeah, so that's why I only gave this a 6 out of 10, unfortunately, just because that's how I felt. So Jesse Eisenberg, obviously returning as J. Daniel Atlas, Woody Harrelson returning as Merritt McKinney, Dave Franco as Jack Wilder, Isla Fisher finally coming back as Henry Reeves, and then we had Justice Smith as Charlie, Dominic Sessa as Bosco, Ariana Greenblatt as June, Rosamund Pike as Veronica Vanderberg, Morgan Freeman as Thaddeus Bradley, Mark Ruffalo as Dylan Rhodes, and Lizzie Kaplan as Lula. So Lula actually makes an appearance in this film, and some of the scenes just seemed a little forced or somewhat chaotic, like they were almost like some moments weren't supposed to happen, but they kind of did. I don't really know how to explain that exactly, but yeah, sometimes the chemistry just seemed a bit off between the actors, and maybe that's because it had been so long since they worked together. Um, that could be, and I feel like they were trying to obviously introduce some new characters at the same time as kind of have the nostalgia of the old characters as well. So that's kind of hard to do when you're introducing a new group of people into the movie. Um, to kind of have the nostalgia factor with the new crew, kind of doing the same, kind of following in the footsteps, obviously, of the Four Horsemen, because their first trick that we see was them intimidating, or like impersonating the Four Horsemen, and they actually ended up getting the cops called on the Four Horsemen, thinking that the Horsemen were somehow back, even though they weren't, and they had split up, obviously because of what had happened in, I think they said Russia. I believe they said Russia. Forgive me if I'm mistaken on that, but I think they were some sort of mission in Russia, and then yeah, it obviously went awry, and then Dylan gets in a lot of trouble, and they all kind of split up after that, unfortunately, and kind of went on and lived their own lives. And again, Henley gets her digs into um, Atlas about being an assistant and so on and so forth, and I guess she has a couple of kids now, and she's like starting her own business or something, I think was mentioned at the beginning of the movie. So obviously this new crew knows quite a bit about them, but they're not going to be quite as quick, obviously, as the original Four Horsemen. And forgive me for finally realizing that the symbol or the logo that they used, I've been trying to rack my brain around what exactly this shape was, but I just finally realized now, and I feel kind of stupid for it, that the logo was actually a 4 and an H. It was simple enough to figure out, but it took me 3 movies to finally realize that that's what that was. So we started in New York, obviously, with a new crew of Charlie, Bosco, and June. And then when Atlas finds them, they travel to Belgium because now they are after Veronica Vanderberg and this diamond called the Heart. That is what the Eye has been telling Atlas, I guess, was that if they get this, they can really shut down um, quite a lot of the bad stuff that she does, obviously, because she creates a lot of bad people. Even at the party, she has like an arms dealer there, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it was kind of crazy about how bad she actually was. And then she kind of falls into the whole like magic thing too, because she even tricks them in Abu Dhabi when they go to get the race car to create a distraction. The rest of the team gets captured actually, and has to find a way out of this giant tank that's filling with sand. Now they are able to fill it with water and somehow break out. I'm not really sure how realistic that would be, with the tiny diamond that uh, um, that Henley had in her hand, that she was able to somehow break them all out of the tank. Not really exactly sure how that happened, and I was kind of a little bit mad that Lizzie Kaplan, Lula's character, wasn't even in like credited in the film on IMDb, even though she's like a pretty big part of the film. So they go to Belgium. They are able to steal the diamond. Kind of a cool trick, but again, it's kind of feels a little stale when when the tricks are explained a little bit too much. And I feel like again they did that in this movie, which is unfortunate because it kind of again it's like the new crew explaining how they're doing the trick. Now, I guess I get it in a sense because obviously the new crew is going to set up the trick a little bit differently than the old crew, but once you've seen how the trick is done, it takes away from it. So I felt like that was kind of like one of the mistakes that the first movie made and that this movie made. Um, Now, I didn't see the twist at the end coming because I thought for sure the person on the phone that was calling Veronica the entire time was going to be Dylan. And boy, was I wrong. Because it ended up being Charlie, which was her brother. So I guess, was it her? I'm not really sure exactly what happened, but I believe obviously some family members of Veronica's had died. I guess one of them being her mother, and I'm not really sure if she had cut the brakes on the car and accidentally killed her mother and almost, I guess, killed her brother as well. I think he says something about that at the very end of the film. Now, another thing with Rosamund Pike, not to bash her acting because I do think she's a very good actress, um, but in this movie, her accent was awful. I don't really know how else to explain it. Like, she sounded British in certain parts, and then she sounded Southern in some parts. And I just couldn't get over that because I was like, what exactly is her accent supposed to be? Is she Southern? Is she British? I don't really know. The coolest scene probably was when they went to France and they met up with Thaddeus. I thought that was the coolest scene. The house, trying to figure out all the locks and stuff, and the mirror rooms and all that stuff. That scene was so cool. Now, I can't remember the exact name of the mansion because when I'm in a theater, obviously I'm not writing stuff down, so I have to, Google it when I get home and find what I can best as I can. So yeah, they wouldn't give me the name of the mansion that they were at, but it was in France. And then obviously when they're in Abu Dhabi, they get trapped and so on and so forth. But yeah, yeah, it just was like almost like a carbon copy of the first and second movie, obviously with the fake sandstorm when Veronica's following them, and then they get her into the car, and then they're creating the sandstorm again when she gets out of the car and she gets into the fake elevator and they wheel her into the fake room, and then he puts blanks in the gun. It was just almost too elaborate to even believe that they had that time to even pull off that kind of a trick. You know what I mean? And when they explain it, it totally takes away from it, and gives the audience, like, oh, well, it wasn't that hard, I guess. They had everything kind of set up before anybody was even in Abu Dhabi. That's kind of my thing. So they were trading the diamond, though, the heart diamond, for McKinney's freedom. And then, of course, McKinney ends up in the cage after Veronica tricks them. So, what a wild turn of events. And then it seems like uh, Lula and Wilder are going to get back together. And that's when they get the package from Dylan, right, at the very end of the movie. But other than that, I don't really know what else to say about this movie because it kind of was. There was some twists, obviously, that I didn't see coming. Like, obviously, I didn't see Charlie being the brother of Veronica, and he really did want to take revenge on her, obviously, for what she had done in the past to him and their family. So he was the one that recruited the Four Horsemen. Everything he did was obviously calculated, like even hiding the documents behind the picture in the house in France and so on and so forth. Um, so yeah, to find out that I guess maybe were they supposed to be German? And he was, I believe, Charlie was South African, so I'm not exactly sure. Like, I guess their mother and father must have been from different places. Yeah, because I maybe she was supposed to be German, but that didn't sound like a German accent at all to me. It sounded more British and Southern. So maybe was she supposed to be German because there was some sort of tie to like the war and this famous uh was it painter? I can't remember. Anyway, somebody famous who created like fake takes, fake cities, so on and so forth to fool the Germans into thinking that they were winning when really they were just blowing up a whole bunch of fake stuff. But anyway, there's a lot to this movie again that I might even have to sit at home and rewatch it and do a re-review down the road. But I didn't find it like the main storyline. I didn't really find as enjoyable as the first two movies. Yeah, I just feel like it was a little bit little bit repeated stuff and a little bit stale. I was hoping for a little bit more. Obviously, with a movie of this caliber that they had been waiting 9 years to come out with, and I just feel like it kind of fell a little flat, unfortunately. So yeah, but there was some sort of tie to like Germany and stuff. So I'm not really sure whether her family went back that far into like the war or what. But obviously, the Heart Diamond was the main thing in this movie, right? That everybody was after, and that would, if they were able to steal the Heart Diamond from her, and obviously get her on all of the scandalous things she had done behind the scenes, then she would be probably put in prison for a very long time. And I think that is what happens to her at the end of the movie when she gets carried off. So I guess I guess they're just going to be called the Horsemen now because obviously there's like 7 of them. So yeah, they can't be called the Four Horsemen, so they're just going to be called the Horsemen. So I'm interested to see what the 4th movie is going to be called, but hopefully it's a little bit better than this one, and hopefully there's a little bit more to it, a little bit more action. I feel like that was what made the second one a little bit better than the first and even this one. So, yeah, I guess I've rambled on enough now. I don't think, yeah, there's really nothing else I can say about this movie, and I will see you guys in the next one, or next review. Bye bye for now.